disorders. What is a personality disorder? It's a rigid, maladaptive pattern that causes personal distress or an inability to get along with others. So if you have a pattern of behavior that causes you difficulties or you can't get along with other people, we call that a personality disorder. There's a lot of different types out there. We're only going to talk about the big ones. But the DSM is full of them. But anyway, you may have heard of narcissistic personality disorder. Disorder characterized by an exaggerated sense of self-importance and self-absorption. That's where you think really big about yourself. A person with narcissistic personality disorder walks into a room and thinks everybody's looking at them and talking about them and such. Really big on yourself. Paranoid personality disorder, characterized by habitually unreasonable and excessive suspiciousness and jealousy. So you're paranoid, you're suspicious, you think people are out to get you. So, you might have heard of a person being called a paranoid schizophrenic. Schizophrenia we'll talk about later, and schizophrenia is also a whole bunch of symptoms, seeing things and hearing voices and all sorts of things. But often it goes along with being paranoid. So a lot of people, you can have schizophrenia and then you can be paranoid schizophrenic, which is paranoid going along with it.
How is schizophrenic different than psychotic?
Psychotic's just a general term that refers to any number of psychological disorders. Schizophrenic is a specific term referring to the seeing things and hearing things, not being able to form words correctly in sentences, having a disorganized view of things. So schizophrenic is, psychotic is just kind of a general term. Narcissus. Do y'all remember the Greek story of Narcissus?
I sure do.
Yes. He fell in love with his own shadow, or that's everyone talking about whoever that is.
I think that's from a movie.
Is it? Looks like a movie thing.
It was in the book. It was talking
that's
about,
in the book?
Yeah, it was talking about someone who was like a lover, and then they're afraid of love, and then they're like a school person.
Ah.
What? So that's a good thought.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are your antisocial personality disorder, characterized by antisocial behavior such as lying, stealing, manipulating others, violence, and lack of guilt, shame, and empathy. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people who you refer to as psychotic might have antisocial personality disorder. Antisocial, against society. They steal, they lie, they hurt other people, and they usually don't feel bad about doing it. A lot of these antisocial people are criminals. And some slang terms for this, a psychopath or a sociopath. You ever heard that? Your serial killers all are characterized psychologically as having antisocial personality disorder. But you don't have to be a serial killer to have it. You can just be kind of a bad actor who, can hurt other people, or, just kind of a mean person. And it's really this lack of guilt or shame or empathy. You don't have many feelings for others, Somebody who laughs at somebody else getting hurt could be an antisocial personality person. So, I'm going to show you a video about serial killers, which is kind of scary, but it's good because it talks about the psychology of these guys.
John Wayne?
John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was the killer clown. He'd dress up as a clown and lure kids into his car and kill them. Jeffrey Dahmer ate people. Jeffrey Dahmer was the one that made up the character from the Silence of the Lambs about. But the Silence of the Lambs was actually a lot of serial killers all put together into one guy. Ed Gein wore masks of his victims, pulled off their skin and wore masks of them. So Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer eating people was kind of a combination of those two.
What did David Berkowitz do?
David Berkowitz killed a bunch of people at the University of Florida a long time ago. I think that was him.
Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
Yeah, didn't he put people in a barrel, like disintegrated them? Ted Bundy.
Yeah, I get
I know
some of
all
these
about
guys
serial
confused.
killers. They're my idols. I mean,
I know Charles Manson did.
Charles Manson had followers who he told to kill people, and his followers killed people.
I never realized.
And that's where we get into cults.
Have you seen his interview? Freaky.
These are all some of the biggest serial killers of all time, and on most of them they'd say, you know, people who knew him would say, he seemed like a nice guy, seemed like a normal person, and they were just these highly antisocial characters that killed a lot of people and never felt bad about it.
They developed these,
terrible.
right?
What's that?
They developed these, right? Because serial killers are supposed to be like middle-aged white men.
Yeah, you know, there's a great book. I wonder if I have it here. I actually have a series of them.
Who said they had to be middle-aged?
Alright, Sierra. Sierra, do you want me to hold on to these? Do you want me to hold on to these?
There's this guy, his name's John Douglas, and he wrote a book series, and here's a couple of them. I think the first one in the series that I had, somebody borrowed and didn't return. But trying to find the Mind Hunter is the name of the first book. And this is an FBI agent that invented profiling. And profiling is where the FBI looks at the crime scene and tries to figure out what kind of person would have done this crime by specifics of the crime scene. And what he did, this guy, his name's John Douglas, he was the first person that ever went and interviewed serial killers. And he interviewed all of them that he could find. Went to prison and talked to them, and they talked to him, and he started to get an idea of how these people think. And so they can go into a crime scene now. This profiling is a whole science to it. And you go into a crime scene and look at stuff about the crime scene, and you can figure out what the person was like that committed it, how old they are, you know, single male, age. They can say, okay, this was probably a single male, age, 20 to 25, used to work as a police officer. They can tell all sorts of things.
Hello.
Yeah.
Someone's messing with you.
Okay. Okay. All right. Stove halls, you got to check out for some reason. Did somebody take over the camera duty? Sierra, will you do that?
Probably not me. Yeah. It's in my nightmares. I hate them.
So anyway, this guy John Douglas, he started this criminal profiling, and if you ever want to read some good books, it's just a page turner. It's you learn about all these he worked a lot of these cases and helped catch a lot of these guys. One of them that he's working on, some guy was breaking into a house, killing women, taking pictures of them, photocopying the pictures, sending them to the police. Like, as, hi, you can't catch me, look what I'm doing. And they put him on the case, and they found out from the break-in and everything he was doing as he broke in that this guy had military training because of the way he was breaking in, the way he was tying knots and things like that. He had to be militarily trained. And there was a military base near the city. So they went around the military base to all the libraries and such around the area, and they put a little scratch on the glass next to every photocopier around there. It's a scratch you couldn't see, but it would appear on the photo if he ever tried that again. They put a different scratch on each machine. And so the next time he did that, they figured out where he was making the copies. And they staked out the area with the camera, and anyway, they caught him that way. So it was kind of it was terrible that you had to wait for more victims to catch the guy, but they caught the guy. And so that kind of FBI profiling thing is useful. Again, I'll show you the video on these serial killers and the psychologists. There's another psychologist in these videos that studies them. It's interesting stuff. But what better job to have to be someone who catches serial killers? And there's a lot of psychology in it. Put those guys away. I'm sure they're doing profiling on this bomber from Boston that set those bombs. You can tell just by the stuff that they're using in those bombs. They said last night it was a pressure cooker and such. And
it was made by there was a magazine that showed people how to make bombs.
Oh, really?
It was Al Qaeda magazine.
Well, they can probably tell by just the materials that were used and how it was placed, and you can tell something about the person perpetrating the crime. So, it's interesting stuff. Here we see, this is a graph showing that people who are not antisocial, the green line is non-antisocial personality disorder, and the purple line is antisocial personality disorder. And this is how many trials it takes for them to be conditioned. And let me just read this. In several experiments, people with antisocial personality disorder were less likely than others to develop classically conditioned responses to anticipated danger, pain, or shock. Responses that indicate normal anxiety. This deficit may be related to the ability of people with APD to act without remorse or regard for the consequences. So for instance, do you remember that experiment where they hooked up the dog to a shock machine? And they do the metronome, and then they give him a shock. And then the next time the metronome goes off, the dog is scared that they're going to be shocked, right? And so they have this conditioned response to the metronome, where they've learned the metronome equals shock. Well, when you set people up on this kind of experiment, a person who's not APD learns very quickly that metronome means shock. And a people who's APD learns it very slowly. Or doesn't learn it as well as the person who's non-APD. So what that means is that might give us some insight on what APD people, they're not learning about pain or about danger as well as the next guy. And maybe that could be something in your brain chemistry. Maybe they don't experience pain the same way or experience fear the same way. And so if you don't experience fear or pain the same way as others, maybe you can't have empathy towards other people's pain. Yes?
Does almost everyone with it feel the need to act, to do something just illegal or bad, or is it just they're more likely?
I don't think so. I'm sure just like everything else in humans, it's a spectrum. Some people are more likely to act than others, and there's other circumstances that probably tie in. For instance, most people who are serial killers were abused as children. Most people who are serial killers had childhood problems like setting fires and bedwetting and hurting animals. Those are classic signs of a troubled youth. And there's plenty of people that hurt animals and wet their beds and set fires as kids that don't end up being serial killers. But a lot of serial killers have that in common.
Keeping in mind that they're you could argue that they're not mentally stable, how are they treated in court?
Well, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. Do you try them as a normal person, or do you work it some other way? And that's for the judges and the lawyers to resolve. But I'm sure that's you could say my patient is insane, and we want we shouldn't be tried for this. So they have to hash all that out when the person is caught, if they're caught. So it's an interesting section. It's only 3 pages. Those of you who don't do the reading in here, it's really not much time. I know there's some of you not doing the reading based on quiz performance. So 3 pages, you can knock that out. 8 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay, I want to finish this video that we had started previously. You can stop filming.